The room that remembers. When Emily saw the ad for the apartment, she almost didn't believe it was real. A cozy one-bedroom place on the edge of town. Rent cheap enough to make her second-guess the catch. The photos on the listing were deceptively inviting. Sun-soaked floors, old hardwood shining faintly under layers of dust and neglect, a window overlooking the rustling skeletons of winter trees. At the bottom, a small note read, "One room permanently locked. Do not open. No exceptions." That was the catch. The landlord wasn't there to explain. The answering machine had only vague pleasantries, and the lock itself looked like it hadn't been disturbed in years. Emily was broke, fresh out of college, job hunting amid a crumbling economy, and her savings pinned against sky-high rents. This place was a lifeline, not a luxury, just survival. She handed over the money, took the keys, and moved in on a gray Wednesday afternoon, thinking the locked door was just a quirk of old buildings. Like a dumb story about a pantry bolted shutter, a closet full of junk. Her first night was unremarkable, the apartment smelling faintly of mildew and old smoke. She dragged a mattress into the main room, tossed her belongings about, and fell asleep staring at the mysterious door, painted the same pale yellow as the walls, the lock rusty but intact, crying out to be opened. Days passed. Emily's life was a limbo of endless job applications and microwave dinners. But every evening, just as dusk folded its claws around the skyline, she began to hear it. Soft crying, a woman's sobs, drawn out and faint, almost melodic, whispered under a breath. At first, she thought it was the wind twisting through the cracked window frames or the distant hum of traffic bleeding in from outside. Then it grew more persistent. It came from behind the locked door. Emily stood in front of it one night, heart hammering against her ribs, hands clammy on the cold metal handle. The crying was low, pitiful, every sob a tear wrenched from a place deep within. She didn't know why, but her fingers traced the edges of the door like a braided thread, trying to will it open, but the lock didn't budge. It was sealed tight, cold as a tomb. She stepped back, her breath shallow. The cry became a murmur, then stopped abruptly. That night, she scoured the apartment for any clue why the door existed. She pulled up every floorboard, flipped through musty ceiling tiles, pried open the kitchen cabinets. Nothing revealed the mystery. The landlord's name was barely a whisper in city records. A man who had disappeared 7 years ago, his apartment untouched and frozen in time ever since. The next night, the crying returned. This time, it was louder, more desperate, like a broken heart shouting in the dark. Emily sat on the floor by the door and whispered, "Who are you? What do you want?" The whispering stopped. For a moment, the apartment was so dead silent it pressed against her ears, and then a soft voice, so faint she strained to hear, whispered back, "Remember?" The word chilled her. She scrambled for her phone and searched the apartment. Locked room landlord. Hoping for a legend, a news report, anything. She found an old newspaper clipping buried in a digital archive. Risk. Local woman Isabel Hart missing from 15 Greenfield Avenue. Family reports hearing strange noises, crying from locked room before her disappearance. Isabel Hart. The name matched a faint inscription carved into the baseboard near the locked door. That night, Emily stared at that carving, tracing the letters with a trembling finger. The crying began again, but this time it changed. No longer mere sobs, but fragmented whispers, snippets of a broken story. Emily pressed her ear closer. "He won't let me out. The lock. The memories, please." She shivered, and drawn by an almost mad curiosity, she searched the internet for anything related to the building before Isabel disappeared. Digging deep into old forums and police reports, she unearthed a tragedy. The landlord, an authoritarian man named Thomas Grayer, had been accused of imprisoning tenants in secret rooms, keeping them there as some twisted collection. None had ever been found, just whispers, rumors, and cold cases. Emily's heart pounded. The locked room wasn't just a locked room. It was a prison. One evening, as snow whispered against the windows, the crying escalated into screaming, achingly human, raw with terror. Emily knew if she didn't unlock the door, the woman's spirit would never find peace. She needed to find the key. The landlord's keys hung on the back of the apartment's only remaining old coat rack. She hadn't dared touch them until now, but desperation claimed her limbs. With trembling hands, Emily lifted the ring and tried each key one by one. No clicks until a tiny click. The door shuddered, hinges groaning as it gave way just a fraction. Frozen, she pushed gently, and the door creaked open, revealing a small, dark closet, no larger than a broom cupboard. But inside, the air was stale, sickly sweet, and heavy like decayed flowers and old secrets. She peered in, swallowing the lump in her throat, then saw it. A wall plaster crumbling, but behind it faint scratches. Words scrolled over and over, desperate and frantic. "I'm here. Don't forget me." She pulled out a phone to light the musty recess. Beneath the wall, a loose panel gave way to a narrow crawl space. Crawling in, she found a small room. Nothing living for years. But on the floor, a faded journal. Emily flipped it open and recognized the handwriting instantly. Isabel's. Her words spilled like blood. Days locked away. The landlord's cruel mind twisting her reality. The loneliness 1,000 knives. She had tried to hide her story here so if anyone ever found it, they'd know what happened. Emily sat back on her heels, tears swimming in her eyes. Suddenly, the air shifted. The crying stopped, replaced by a deep, grateful sigh. A cold breeze circled her and whispered again, this time clearer, lighter. "Thank you." That night, for the first time since moving in, the apartment felt different. The oppressive weight that had shadowed every corner lifted slightly, like the room itself remembered and was grateful for release. But as she locked the door again, her eyes caught the faintest shimmer near the lock, a tiny keyhole that hadn't been there before, and inside, the faintest imprint of a woman's hand. The room remembered and it would never forget.